welcome. Here's your seat. How are you, Aidan, today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very good. Third day of the festival for you, is that right?
Yes, third day.
Yeah.
But it's all been really enjoyable. It's gone pretty fast.
Yeah.
Been busy. And apologies for only being able to speak English, but it's the best option at this point.
Have you learned anything in Czech in the recent days?
Not really, no. Sorry for not making more of an effort, but I'll come back to you next year with a full vocabulary.
Oh God, Czech is very, very difficult to learn. Don't do that. Don't waste your time doing that. Anyway, you went to our Irish pub here. You visited our Irish pub here in Zlin yesterday. So as an Irish man, did we pass the test or did we embarrass ourselves?
No, it was actually pretty authentic. You know, I mean, I've been in some pretty fake Irish pubs, and you know, I know we're not in Ireland, so there's always a bit of that. But, you know, there was one in Prague called the James Joyce. That's totally, you know, they've got bicycles hanging on the wall, and they've got all of that. You know, it's a kit. We were talking about this last night. There's a kind of a kit that you can get, and they bring it over, and they, you know, make it look like, and they spray cigarette smoke, 100 years of cigarette smoke on the wall. A friend of mine used to have this job of going around creating fake Irish pubs. But no, the one last night was good because it was just quite chilled and relaxed. And Dallin, who's the kid, or one of the kids, he's like 14 or 15 now.
He's amazing.
Yeah, he's great, and he's in the film. And he's a really great musician. Like the main actors in the film haven't acted before, and they're all really talented musicians. And Dallin, with his father, just took out like an accordion and a baron, like a drum, and started playing in the pub. And that was actually very genuine the way that worked, because nobody come up and said, "What are you doing?" I don't think they asked permission, which is good. That's very authentic too. And people who were in the pub just came over and watched and got a nice surprise. And it was all very natural, which is the way in a proper Irish pub. If someone's going to start singing or playing music, it just happens. So I thought the pub was good.
Glad to hear that. What's the music instrument closest to your heart?
Well, I'm not a very good musician. I can play guitar, but not like, you know, like a lot of people, not very well. You know, the one I like listening to most is probably, you know, it'd be strings, you know, violins and cellos, and, you know, the string section, or the piano. But the one I can attempt to play would be the guitar or the drum machine.
Okay, but music is very close to your heart.
Yeah.
And we all know that, and not only because of Tread, because of the movie, but also I know that you hosted quite well-known show in Ireland connected to music, right?
Yeah, there's a TV show shot in Ireland in the southwest in a county called Kerry that I used to live in. It's called Other Voices, and it's, you know, they shoot maybe 6 hours of TV over a 10-day period, and a lot of like really great bands want to come and play in this place. They shoot it in a tiny church that holds about 40 people. Like recently, Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters heard about it and wanted to come and play a gig in the church.
He's great.
So like 40 people. And the backstory of that was, I mean, I don't want to waste too much time on that, but it's a good story that after Kurt Cobain died, Dave Grohl went to Ireland to kind of just get away from everything, and was wondering what he was going to do with his life. And he picked up this kid in the middle of nowhere who was wearing like a Nirvana t-shirt, and decided to, so he says anyway, decided to start the Foo Fighters. But they came back and played in this church, and it's on, you can watch it online if anyone's into Foo Fighters. And it's like an incredible show, and it's in front of like, 40 people. But you know, Amy Winehouse played there, you know, the Davies Brothers from the Kinks, the National played there several times. I mean, it's just, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I have lots of friends who are in bands. I wasn't good enough myself, so I went for the acting, which, you know, for me it's kind of the same thing. I don't really differentiate too much between playing in a band or acting in a play or in a film. You know, it's all performance, and I would be influenced as much by music and musicians than by actors. But I am definitely influenced by both, and I do listen to music all the. I used to listen to music constantly, like all the time, like almost when I was asleep. You know, I had an old Walkman, and it used to play. You'd finish to one side and would reverse and go back. So I'd wake up still listening to it.
You can fall asleep while.
Yeah, with a full volume. Yeah.
Wow. And what about when you are preparing for a role? Do you like search for a music that character might like?
Yeah,
Does
I
that
do.
help you?
I always do. I make playlists, and that can be real fun, you know, because sometimes
like
it's
a real playlist.
Yeah.
Wow.
And sometimes it's music that I would never listen to. And not that I have anything against Phil Collins, for example, or Dire Straits or whatever, but there was one character I played who was like he was a criminal, like a sociopath, psychopath. So he was into Phil Collins and Dire Straits. And there was another thing I did where I only listened to one album over and over again, which was Bowie's Low from whenever, 1974 or around then.
Do you know what you actually mentioned Bowie, and when I was watching you yesterday, I realized that you would really make a good Bowie in a movie. Would you like?
Is that because of my serious Moonlight haircut?
Is that a compliment for you?
No, it's good. Thanks. I mean, yeah, there is a connection there. I was reading a book recently where they were talking about. It was a lot about Bowie, and they were referring to his haircut in the mid '80s as the color of it as being custard colored. And I got my hair dyed for a job recently, and I asked them if they could do a kind of a Bowie haircut from 1986 or 87. So that's intentional. But one of the first plays I did in theatre in London when I was 18 is in a tiny room above a pub. The whole theatre is probably like you could fit 6 of it in this tent. And I had a good reputation, so people came, and you couldn't get away with being bad or any kind of inauthentic performance because people were literally, closer than you are. But Bowie did come one night, and one of my early film jobs, Bowie put up like quarter of the budget.
Oh.
It was an independent thing, and someone passed him the script, and so.
So you knew him?
No,
just met him?
no, but our paths did cross in a way,
Okay.
professionally, which is pretty cool, right?
If there's any producer here wanting to make a Bowie movie,
Yeah,
we
well,
might have a star.
well, you're gonna have to get someone else to play him for the vast majority of his career.
You mentioned your early years in the theater. You also did that in London, if I'm right. Yeah.
Mostly, yeah.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about this connection because a lot of people that are from England or lived in England, when they come to Zlin, they somehow feel at home because of the architecture. Has that come across?
I definitely I feel quite comfortable in any kind of industrial setting myself,
Okay.
and around hills. Because driving from Prague to here, it's very flat. And as we got closer, and I saw some hills and some trees and some forests, it definitely made me happy and feel a bit secure. And I'm staying in a hotel that looks down a bit at the factory, the Bata factory and some other industrial buildings. I can't say it reminds me of England specifically, but that kind of industrial architecture, factories and stuff like that, I do love. And I'm in England. I lived in London, but I'm probably happier in the north of England, in the industrial cities like Manchester and Sheffield and Liverpool, ports or places with factories and stuff. Yeah, I don't know what that's about. It doesn't remind me of England though.
Okay. And what about the people? Because I have a feeling like there might be some similarity between people from Ireland and Czech Republic. No? Maybe when it comes to the humor?
Yeah, definitely there is. I couldn't really define it because I feel like we're quite different, but I've always felt kind of quite at ease and at home here and able to talk to people. Definitely the thing with the music and the pubs and the, you know, that kind of culture is similar, and the just easygoing nature, the way people can talk to each other without it being overloaded. You know, you can go to a stranger and have a conversation, and then you can walk away, and you know, it's not too transactional. It's just, you know, real life interaction. Yeah, other than that, I don't know what the culturally, yeah, kind of. I feel like people here are into, you know. I'd be at a film festival. It might be, you know, you're dealing with people who are into literature or film or music or whatever. But that's a long answer, sorry. But yeah, I do feel at home, and like the people are similar. Yeah.
Okay, so let's test those interactions actually here and now. So is anyone already brave enough to ask a question here? Okay, not yet. Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay.
Thank you. All right, thanks for being here, Aiden. First question, as you can tell, I'm probably not Czech. If you can tell the accent, I'm American. So my question to you as an actor...
I know, I was trying to work out if I could tell specifically, pinpoint in America where you're from, but I'll come back to you on that.
All right, I'll let you guess if you can. It's not a very strong American accent, so... I've actually...
I'll come back to it.
I was in the military for 25
Okay.
or 23 years, so I moved around.
Right.
But originally from California.
Okay.
Wow.
My question to you is, as an actor, you often get to play American. How hard is it for you to work on the different accents you have when you're
yeah,
acting?
look, I suppose that's debatable, because you always do as good as you can, and you always feel like you're doing a good job, you know, and you don't want to, even if you're getting it wrong, you're not going to tell you know, you work as hard as you can. But I think with an American accent, I mean, people in Ireland with a modern Irish accent, specifically if they're from Dublin, are often confused with having an American accent, you know, and people who speak English in Europe, and even in, you know, all around Europe, even going back to the 90s, I feel, even the 80s, I always felt spoke with a bit of an American accent, because we're so used to learning our English off TV shows and stuff like that. So I think, and there's also a lot of Irish in the American accent, you know, and then if you get specific, if you were in Boston and you're trying to do a Boston accent, which is a pretty difficult accent, but it's totally a mixture of an English accent and an Irish accent.
How does a Boston accent sound like?
I can't do it, but like it's kind of there's the thing that they do where they don't pronounce the or, you know, like the ca, pack the ca, this kind of thing. That's a really cliche thing to say, but that's the one people always go for. The man in the bag, pack the ca, and that sounds like Mickey Mouse, but this is not. You know, give me some time to prepare on that one. Yeah, or I was in Baltimore for a while, working on a TV series called The Wire, and that was for years, and that is a very specific accent. And in that case, you know, having 2 weeks or whatever I had to try and, you have to make a decision, as in, whatever you start with, you've got to stick with. So, you know what your limitations are, go as far as you can. And in the case of that character, who was a politician from, you know, he wasn't from the docks, he wasn't, you know, he'd have probably gone to, you know, maybe a fee-paying school, or, you know, Ivy League college or whatever, his accent would be a bit ironed out. But again, that's a mixture of English, like north of England. Is this a really boring answer that's going forever? Irish, Italian, Hungarian. You know, makes sense, I suppose.
Are you inside of your head while you're actually answering and speaking? Are you thinking about what you're saying and like judging yourself a little? Because I have a feeling like you do that.
Probably, yeah. Yeah. I'd like to think I'm not doing that too much. I think people do that. I think actors probably do it all the time and kind of nitpick a bit. But you're right. Thanks for identifying that. A friend of mine who's a director who directed 2 seasons of Peaky Blinders, when I was working on it, we were doing a scene which I thought was going really well, and he comes up and goes, "Stop thinking it, just fucking say it." So yeah, you're right.
You've played a lot of men who like operate like in the shadows of power, and I was thinking, when you have to play for quite a long time someone who is manipulative, does that actually somehow get underneath your skin, and are you maybe more sensitive to that when it comes to real life, or am I just thinking about it too philosophically?
No, I mean, it definitely does get under your skin. That stuff is fun to play, and in the case of say something like an obvious character that I've played, that you know, talking about power and ambition and all that, would be Littlefinger in Game of Thrones. But given that that's like in the fantasy realm, you know, and you're dressed up in these costumes and stuff, it just doesn't feel too real, you know, and you don't take it home with you too much. But I have played some darker characters which were, you know, who were manipulative or dark in a much more realistic setting and way, and in those cases, yeah, it does. I used to like to be able to say it didn't affect me and it didn't take it home, but it actually did. And there was a few times when I was obviously thinking too much in the middle of a scene, doing something that I was filming in Canada, and as I was saying this stuff, I just had I got a real chilling feeling of it just felt wrong, you know, but I had to keep going.
Is there a character that like really like stayed with you? I don't know how to say it properly. Someone who is in your head still very much present?
Yeah, I mean, loads of them. Because I've been doing this now since I was still in school, really, and I try to be detailed, or to give detailed performances. So, you know, I do prepare a lot before things and then try and forget about it, so it's just thrown away. And quite a lot of them do. There was a politician I played politicians a few times. Now that was an interesting turn, because I had always played people on the wrong side of the law. Not that excludes politicians, because it doesn't.
That's very right.
But when I started out, I was playing a lot of victims, because I was very shy when I was younger. And some of the first roles I got were quite, you know, callow, shy, victim type people. That changed somewhere along the way, and but it was often I was playing people who were outlaws and rebels and stuff like that, which I could also identify with, because my own life was a bit like that. And then I got to play a politician, and then I did another one, and I played there was a Taoiseach, which is Prime Minister in Ireland in the 70s, 80s into the 90s, called Charles Haughey. He was a controversial figure, and people still talk about him as if he's there, you know. Not only has he not been in power for a long time, but he hasn't been alive for a long time. But that one definitely stayed with me.
Okay, and like staying with you, there's also this thing, like you've been part of huge projects, exactly like Game of Thrones or Peaky Blinders or The Wire, just things that people probably tend to ask you about quite a lot. I believe there are some people in the audience who are also fans of those shows, those projects. Are you annoyed by those questions and people being interested in it, or have you, because some of your colleagues are, or have you found a way how to take the good from it?
No, I'm not annoyed by it at all. When it first started happening, where people were calling me by a character name in the street, I was taken aback and, you know, not offended, but I was like, why are they, you know, that's a part of it. My name is Aidan and blah, blah, blah. And then after a while, I'm going, right, actually, I don't want them to come up and talk to me as Aidan, and it provides a buffer between you and them. And then they forgot about that character, and I played another one, and they started calling me that name. And then I started to use it as a kind of a gauge, again, thinking about things too much. But if people come up to you on the street and call you by a character name, like they believe it's you, it means that they bought it, they believe you, and it means they probably enjoyed it if they could be bothered coming up to talk to you about it. Except in Ireland, people will come up to talk to you about it even if they didn't enjoy it, which is another great thing about living in Ireland. It's very grounding. Like people, it's hard to get a compliment, you know, and people will tell you exactly what you think. And I've always kind of liked that, even within my own family, you know. It's like you have to work hard to get, you know, any props, as in any compliments, as much as I love them. No, I quite like being asked questions about things, and that's another reason why you end up still thinking about these characters. If people are still coming up and talking to you on a daily basis about Aberama Gold and Peaky Blinders or Littlefinger or whatever, and I loved playing all of them.
Yeah. Have you seen the new Peaky Blinders movie?
I saw the film, yeah.
So how do you feel about like those shows growing into much, you know, wider and bigger worlds? And it doesn't have to be only Peaky Blinders, you know.
I mean, I felt Peaky Blinders, one of the things about it that made it stand out was that it had such a cinematic scope in the first place. I felt like the film felt smaller than the TV series, funny enough. And I felt like they had more money and that it came out looking smaller. Is this being filmed? Am I on the record now?
I think this will not get to Stephen Knight.
Well, it might. But they're actually gone back and they're doing a new Peaky Blinders TV series now. So they're filming it at the moment.
I recently interviewed Cillian Murphy and Stephen because of that. And I kind of had a feeling like this was their kind of farewell. And they are just like, you know, creating the space for maybe new people to come. And
I know Cillian Murphy really loved playing that part, and it's the one that even though he's been around for not as long as me, but he's been around for a while, and he's always approached his work with the same rigor. Like he's been given an Oppenheimer or Tommy Shelby level performance on everything since he was 19. You know, it's always been like top class. But I know he loved Peaky Blinders, and I know that he wanted to say goodbye to it properly.
No spoilers here.
No spoilers. But one of my favorite parts of the film, well, I can't say it being a spoiler, but it was somebody reads out a list of things at the end, which was definitely like a proper goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they've got a whole new people in there now, young bloods.
What is dying like in front of camera? Have you died in front of camera?
Yeah, quite a lot. I've died on stage quite a lot. I added it up once, and it was kind of 50 times or something.
Okay.
It is weird, actually, to do it over and over again. And my kids, I never really thought about it, but there's an actor, Jonathan Pryce, and if you don't know, you know, he's great, and you'd know his face if you don't know his name, but he played, one of the things he played was a Bond villain in which he died, and I know his kids, you know, and his son was saying to me that it was really weird for him growing up, seeing his father dying over and over again. And I had never thought about it, so my kids are grown up now, but I asked them, was it strange for them seeing their father dying over and over again? They said, yeah, it actually is.
In what way? Was it traumatizing for them, or?
It was traumatizing. It was also traumatizing that I came to them once and said, we're going to go to the cinema, we're going to go and see a film, and at the end I'm going to get thrown out the window, and I'm going to fall, 40 floors to my death. But, there was a PG-rated film. It was made in Czech Republic. It was made in Prague.
Oh, that was the Nights of Shanghai?
Yeah, Shanghai Nights.
Shanghai Nights, okay.
I got thrown out at the window of Big Ben at the end. But I had to pre-warn the children. And, I counted it up. It was quite a lot. But at least I know how to do it now.
At least, yeah.
Practice makes perfect.
Okay, so is here anyone who would like to ask something else, maybe? Is there another question for Aiden? There is one, okay. Zkuste to. Should I go there?
Just shout it out.
I think I can go there. It's okay. That was a little shortcut, okay.
So I wanted to ask, what's your favorite quote that your character has ever said? Like, your favorite?
Favorite quote?
Yeah.
God.
Do you remember any?
I can't. No, I can remember some of them. There was one I loved in Peaky Blinders, which was, I played a gypsy in Peaky Blinders, called Abraham Gold, like a hitman. And there's a bit where Abraham Gold goes off to carry an assassination for Tommy Shelby, who's Cillian Murphy's, and I go back to talk to him about payment, and he suggests that we go underground, and my line was, "We're gypsies, we're already underground," and I really like that one. And from Game of Thrones, it's not the obvious one that people always go on about, which is "Chaos is a ladder," but I had a lot of other really good quotes in there, and some of them were ones that are common parlance anyway. "Loose lips sink ships" was one of them, and I really liked that one. And "power is power." No, it was yeah. I said "knowledge is power," and then Cersei says. But these are out there in the the world anyway. The "chaos is a ladder" thing from Peaky Blinders was funny because, and this came up in an interview I was doing yesterday. In season 1 of Game of Thrones, it wasn't long enough, and they needed to find some. I'm not going to call it filler, but they said we need to write some more scenes, and because we're 8 minutes short or whatever. So we did a few scenes that were just written quickly, and one of them was a version of that this "chaos is a ladder" scene from Game of Thrones, which became quite famous and notorious and quoted. And but we shot it and they didn't use it. And then in season 3, I think it came back, and we did it again. We did it slightly differently, and then we were in the studio doing ADR. Where you go back and re-record the dialogue just because there's, and it was just because there was background noise because we were filming in a hangar that had pigeons flying around in it. And when I saw the scene cut together and the music was underneath it, I knew that it had to be kind of bigger, more performed. So we spent, the studio was booked for half an hour, and I managed to convince the producer to give us. We ended up spending about 4 hours re-recording that, but doing much more of a bigger performance and making it more just acted and dramatic, and it was quite different than what we shot on the day. And I know you didn't ask that question, but
that was a good question.
It is a good question, and I might be able to come up with some more, but
it's one you gotta think about.
Yeah, loose lips sink ships.
Is there anyone else who would like to ask something? Also, taky to může být tak, že se můžete zeptat v češtině a já to s radostí přeložím, kdyby se třeba někdo bál mluvit anglicky, ale nikdo se v tuhle chvíli nehlásí. I just told them that if they wanted to ask, I can also translate for them. But talking about all the shows and the films you did, is there any set, if you could travel back in time, you would actually like to visit again? Just like for a day. Good old times.
To be honest, they were all good old times, and I do think about them a lot, and a lot of the earlier jobs, it wouldn't have been like a set. It was kind of stuff that was shot on the streets or whatever. There was a very early BBC one-off film that we did called Safe, which was it was about a group of homeless kids in London. We did that in the early 90s, and I learned an awful lot on that from being around actors who no one was really trained or anything. It was all quite loose and no technique, and I didn't know what I was doing. But there's an actress called Kate Hardy who'd been in a few things, and she was like, "Just do, there are no rules here. Just do whatever it takes." And when I watched it, it really works. The technique is terrible, but everyone really means what they're doing, but it's just very messy and scrappy.
What was the name of it, so we can look it up?
Safe, just SAFE, Safe. And also there was a film called Mojo, which is based on a play that we did, and that was kind of pivotal, as in we spent the summer of 1995, which was like a really hot summer, on stage performing this play, which was set during a real hot summer in 1958. And again, it was being with this group of actors who were just so good and top of their game, and you were kind of just felt dared to just go further than you had before, and that's what had happened on that previous TV thing. And this time around, it was, Andy Serkis was in it, and Tom Hollander, and we ended up making a film of it as well. So they were game changers, both of those things. But I'd go back to any of them, but part of the joy of it, I think, is walking away from them, particularly taking off costumes. I always had this thing of like taking it off and throwing it down there and going, I'm never going to see that again. It feels good. And on stage, after doing it, rehearsing the play for ages and then doing it night after night, on the last night, I feel like I always literally can see the words coming out like a ticker tape, and that's it, blown away.
Wow. Have you ever got starstruck on a set or on stage?
Not really. That was never a problem. And I think, the first time I acted with someone who was a famous actor is a guy called Gabriel Byrne in Ireland. And I was about 17. And I had a small part in this film, just like a day. And I remember feeling afterwards this thing. I was going, oh yeah, I was able to do that, and I wasn't starstruck or afraid. I felt very relaxed and not kind of. I didn't note it, as I think I think I'm okay here. I've met a few people that I was, when I was younger, that I was kind of in awe of or whatever. Yeah, sure, but on stage, not starstruck, but the person that blew me away most that I saw acting on stage was John Malkovich.
Okay, yeah.
He had this thing where I felt like I was watching John Malkovich do this play in ages back called Burn This, and I was sure that the light was doing this thing, that as he talked, that the spotlight was kind of closing in on him, but it wasn't, because I went back to see it again and again, because I was working in the theatre at the time, not as an actor, but just doing gardening and cleaning the carpet and stuff like that. And him and people were kind of women from all over England were just bashing the doors down.
He's actually coming quite a lot to Czech Republic with theater. That's good. So if you want to go see him, he's like almost every year here. But back to you, Aiden. If I'm correct, you are the youngest one of 6 kids.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And since we are at the festival for kids and youth, what kind of a kid were you? You already mentioned you were shy. Was that also like that when you were little?
I don't think I was particular. I think the shy thing is more like when I was out in the world a bit more, like secondary school, and I was very shy with girls and stuff like that. I just really, like a lot of boys, I just didn't know what to do as a, very self-conscious and stuff like that. No, I think at home, my mother was a nurse, and my father worked at home, and it was quite a normal, safe, kind of comfortable upbringing. You know what I mean? People were happy. I mean, being the youngest, I definitely got away with a bit more, but I wasn't spoilt. But my parents had kind of probably been driven into the ground at that stage, and I was able to, I left school mentally when I was I was in school till I was 16, just gone 17, but I kind of mentally left when I was about 14, I think, when I was doing I did a play. I was in a theatre. I did a play and I got some laughs, and I was like, all right. And then I ended up getting kicked out of school anyway, so they did it for me in the end.
Yeah. Wow. So the laughing thing, is that what actually made you decide to become an actor? Hearing people reacting.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't because I felt I needed the attention and the that kind of thing, but it was more like it meant that it must be working, because 200 people just all laughed at the same time, and if it wasn't a comedy, it was a Shakespeare play, but it was, I had a kind of comic role in it, and if it was a serious play, I wouldn't have known if I was doing it right or not, but because it was, because you got the laugh, you knew, and I thought, all right, here's something I can do, because other than that, my ambitions were to be a jockey, was one of them, because I was really small. I was also the smallest in my school, in my class, up to the age of 12. I was just very small, you know, and just I thought I could ride horses on the racetrack, or be a stunt man, because everyone when I was a kid was into Evel Knievel. I still have my Evel Knievel toy.
So you decided for a profession where you can actually, you know, try all of this. We actually yesterday we talked about this with our young stars of this year of the festival, that it's kind of cool job if you cannot really decide what you want to do in life and you want to try a lot. Acting might be the right thing to do.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you do get to do. I mean, you actually have to, you know, learn lots of things, like whether it's, you know, with weapons or horses or, you know, a lot of physical stuff. Get to travel, but you get to be other people, you know, and that is, without getting too heavy about it, it's quite addictive, you know, to get to play people in kind of extreme circumstances in their lives. And in the first, I went to London when I was 18, and the first few years, you know, they're quite lean, as in I was getting parts, but I was on my own, you know, nearly all the time that I wasn't working. I mean, you're that age and you're on your own in a big city. It's pretty lonely, so I kind of really honed in on getting those roles, and the relationships within the scripts, whether it was on a theatre or on TV or whatever, became very real, you know, and I've since taken it. I've always considered it's kind of the same. My relationships that I have on screen or on stage are kind of pretty much the same, lived with the same intensity as my real life relationships, which can be a bit confusing for people. But
After the festival, you're going back to Prague, or not back, you're going back to Prague after 20 years, to be precise, maybe even more than 20 years, because you did the Shanghai Nights movie there that you already mentioned. Where will your first steps lead you there?
Well, the really obvious places, I suppose. You know, when I stayed there, I had an apartment in the old town, you know, and I just used to really like walking around those narrow streets and down by the river. I love trams. I grew up beside a railway track, and I've always found that when I've rented places or houses I end up living are always beside railway tracks. And sometimes I can't fall asleep unless I'm near like a train. So in towns that don't have an obvious railway track going through the middle, I'll always find myself on a tram.
Yeah.
So
We have
Prague,
a lot of new
Prague,
trams.
trams in Prague. When I was in Budapest, I was on trams all the time. But yeah, the old town square, the clock. I mean, I know this is dead, real touristy stuff, but I can stand looking at a river. You know, I don't need too. It doesn't take too much. You know what I mean? I can be entertained by a river, or a tree, or you know, a lake.
Yeah, I hope I'm not giving away too much, but you told me yesterday that back when you were shooting the Shanghai Nights, you got mugged there in Prague.
I got mugged, yeah, but that was just part of the, you know, experience.
Oh, is it? Is that part of the
I wasn't
experience?
giving out about it. I wasn't saying it's any more dangerous than anywhere else. I mean, I'm from Dublin, and people are getting mugged all the time. It was just the guy who mugged me was like the biggest man I've ever seen in my life. So like, I did the sensible thing and just like let him mug me.
Hope that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, well, I won't have $500 in my pocket, which is what I had. I had my per diems. He looked out. He looked out with me.
Okay. Any question? Because we're coming to an end very, very soon. So if anyone wants to ask anything, okay, brave enough. Happy to see that. Aha, určitě.
Já bych se chtěl zeptat, jak náročný byl casting na roli Petera Baelishe z Her o trůny, případně kolik uchazečů o tuhle roli bylo.
How difficult it was to actually get the role in Game of Thrones, and how many people were considered for the role, if you know that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really bad at auditions, like really bad. So most of my work hasn't come from auditions. And at one point, I realized I was losing losing more work by, you know, doing bad terrible auditions. So everything I've done, I can draw a line from this to that to this to that. It's a bit like a pinball, you know, and it's one of the reasons my acting career has been so erratic, and things have been, there's lots of different kinds of things in different places. And it's because it hasn't been the traditional route, you know. It's always come from, oh, somebody saw something 15 years ago and this or that. But the part I got cast in that from being in this other TV series called The Wire, where I played a politician. It was a different HBO series. And I've been cast in that by, I was doing a play in New York, a Harold Pinter play. And I was in that because I'd been in this film, which was based on that play in 1995, and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? There was a direct line, but they wanted, the writers of Game of Thrones said, we want this character to be a bit like Tommy Carcetti from The Wire, but in this, you know, faux medieval type setting. I know they did see one other actor who I knew, and I know they offered him the part, and he turned it down. His name is Tom Hollander. I've met him since, and I was like, I said, yeah, you turn that down. He regretted turning it down, but Tom has had like a brilliant career, and you know, we'd been in stuff going way back. But he was like, how did you know that? Yeah. I said, because you said it in an interview in the Sunday Times, and you let the world know. Yeah. But it was really through being in something else. And I did go in and read a couple of scenes on video, on tape, but it wasn't they didn't see, I think they saw like 2 people.
Okay. Is there a character you regret turning down or not getting?
No. There was a few I really wanted that I thought, you know, that I got close to. Martin Scorsese was an actor, was a director. Like all actors, everyone in his life wants to work with Martin Scorsese, and I did come close to it once with this film called Gangs of New York.
Yeah.
But the film, you know, when I saw it, it's not his best film,
It's not his best
so I wasn't too worried about it. No, I mean, there's a few things I've done. You know, you don't always get it right. There's a few things I've definitely got wrong. I don't want to get too much into them, but you know, there's a couple of things I can definitely not look at. And what you definitely don't want to be the wrong person in a role on stage, because that only happened once, but it was like a 3-hour Chekhov play, okay. And I was in every scene of it, and we did it for like 3 months, and I continue to work at it, trying to get it right, but you know, walking on feeling like you're the wrong person, you know. So I have made a point of really trying to not end up being the wrong person and I'm good at reading scripts actually, and I'll read them, and if the thing itself isn't good, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to pursue the role. I can't actually learn lines or perform in scenes if they're not good, really.
But how did that happen with the Chekhov's play? How did you end up actually being there? You were younger, or?
Yeah, I mean, I ended up doing that because there's a theatre in London called the Almeida. It's a really good theatre, and I'd been in 2 or 3 plays there already, and one of them was another Shakespeare play, The Tempest, in which I was playing Ariel, and David Hare, who was the playwright who was adapting this unfinished Chekhov play called Platonov, came to see it and decided that I was the man to play the role, and the same director who I'd worked with on The Tempest was going to direct it. They told me that I was the person. Okay. And it's not that I wasn't terrible in it or anything. But I can read the script, and if it's not good, there's been things, I've been offered plenty of things that I just go, I'm not the right person for this. For that reason though, it's kind of feels like the worst thing you could possibly do is be the wrong person to, and then you don't always get it right, and you do end up fucking it up. But try and keep it to a minimum, you'll be all right.
That's a good advice. Anyone else? Okay.
So you are a theatrical. You play in theater, also in movies. So do you prefer like movies instead of theater, or?
No. I mean, I've definitely done more of it recently, and I used to do like just theater, but you know, starting out, that was kind of there wasn't any other options really. I think theater is much harder, you know. I think like, and it's rewarding artistically, but you know, financially it's not. So if you're trying to raise kids and all the rest of it, I don't think I could have done that if I was just doing theater. But like nearly all of my kind of bigger or well-known TV things came from performances in plays that people had seen. So I think it's nice to mix it up. And the last play I did was about 2 years ago, and again it was a kind of a mammoth Irish play called Faith Healer by Brian Friel. And you know, the first thing is you walk out and it's like a 45-minute monologue straight off, and then another 35-minute. It was just I was like, whatever the hardest thing I can find to do, I'll do it. But I used to be in the dress, literally pulling my hair out, you know, beforehand, going, what am I doing to myself? Because it's like I think it's like doing a tightrope walk every night. It's not actually as dangerous as doing a tightrope walk, but you know, over between two buildings. That's what it feels like, and it feels like if you mess it up, that like you'll never get over it, you know. But the buzz off it after you've walked out is second to none, and I've never felt more alive than after doing a theatre performance. I think it's nice to mix it up, and especially being I lived in London for 20 years, where it's kind of everyone kind of does it. You know what I mean? As in, it's not considered frowned upon, anything like. I mean, you're expected to do theatre every now and then just to prove that you can actually act. You know, I don't know what the situation is in New York, but you know, apart from the tiny plays, a lot of the stuff that I saw in New York, it's it's a bit show busy, you know, like a lot of musicals and stuff like that. I mean, I've seen some brilliant theatre in New York, but always in the smaller places. And the American actors, you know, when they're like going, are like, particularly people like John Malkovich are from that theatre company that he was part of in Chicago, Steppenwolf. You know, they've got this style that's just very real and earthy. And the English thing, it's different because everyone goes to drama school, you know. And maybe people in America do now, but it wasn't like that. And in Ireland, it wasn't, because there weren't any. So it was a much more of a, you know, just felt more real. It wasn't about technique and, you know, having a lovely voice and stuff like that. I'm not knocking that, because, you know, of course the English actors are great.
Before we go, I think we should invite.
Thanks.
Yeah, that was a good question. And before we go, we should also invite people to go and see Tread, because they can still do that here at the festival. While I was watching the movie, I was thinking, what a amazing celebration of life, of independence, of just being free, allowing yourself to be who you are. That's kind of what it awakened in me. What did it mean for you?
Yes, same kind of thing. I mean, it's a really fresh film, made from the heart. It's written and directed by Lance Daly, who I know, you know, he's a friend of mine. I'm in it. I'm not playing the lead in it. The lead performances are all actors who have never acted before, and I really love going to work and watching people who've never done it before, and like they're all really great musicians, you know. And that being on those sets, and you know, this is a no frills production. I mean, it looks great, but it was made for nothing, you know. And when you're at work looking at something, there's an actress called Sarah Green who's in it, who's, you know, a really accomplished Irish actress. And there's a scene at the end where some people are playing music in a pub and having a moment, you know, where these two characters come together. And I remember just looking over at her while this was being filmed, and we were just, I can't even explain what the feeling was, but it was kind of like, this is what, you know, it's all about. And you know, I would give that you know, I take that over any, you know, anything else. You know, hanging out with movie stars, or you know, that was just way more interesting than pretty much anything I've kind of experienced. Watching people who've never done it before doing it for the first time, finding their way. But it is a really good, fresh film, and it is about just finding a group of people finding each other, finding themselves, finding their talent, and what to do with it. And it's about music, you know, as a language, traditional Irish music, which has a real life to it. It's been a bit, you know, put away in a box as kind of, you know, this is heritage stuff and it's all harps and fiddles and stuff. But in Ireland, it's very alive, you know, and people do play it. And it, you know, in the right circumstances, it just happens in places, in, you know, on the street or in pubs or whatever. And the people that they got cast in this, it's as natural to them as just going for a walk. You know what I mean? They're not precious about it.
I actually think people at the first screening, they started tapping their feet, right, while they were watching the movie.
Yeah, so this is the first time it's played anywhere outside of Ireland, so we knew people in Ireland would be very familiar with the territory. In fact, we were worried they'd be too familiar with the territory. And you know, oh, okay, another thing about like, they'd get the fiddles out and, you know, blah, blah, blah. But, so we weren't sure how it would work. But people did really respond well to it, and one of the ways they responded to it is at the end when this music has been played. You know, we kind of heard this kind of thing, but it was, and Lance, who wrote and directed it, was sitting there, and it was, you know, it was dark, and I kind of turned. He was a few seats away, and I was like, "Is that us? Is that in the film, or is that like the people in this auditorium?" He said, "No, it's the people in here." And so that was, again, it was an affirmative response. It was a bit like that time of the laughs in the theatre. We're like, well, they must be working if they're tapping they weren't just tapping their feet, like they were stomping. And I don't want to be bigging it up too much in case you don't want to overreach the expectations here, but it did play really well. And people did acknowledge that the music was, it was all moving and soulful, but they didn't feel they were being force-fed some heritage Irish blarney.
I really hope this moment from the screening is gonna stay with you.
Yeah, thanks.
And you're gonna remember that. There's time for one more question. Okay, so this is some sweets for you.
Oh, thanks.
For a man. There's no question, Aiden. It's quite warm.
Thank you.
Oh, if you would be so nice to just give him an autograph on on the ticket to the cinema. And yes, that's one more thing to say. You can see the movie today I think in like 2 hours, I guess. I think the screening. Okay, the screening starts at 7:30.
One more question at the back over there.
Oh, is there?
We've met.
Yeah, that's my friend, actor. Hi.
Hi.
Hi again.
Hi again. Well, what is it after all those years? You started when you were 17. What is it that just keeps you on doing it? And like, what have you ever? Was there a time where you were like, "Oh, I'm through. I don't want to do this anymore"?
Yeah, once. But like, come back to that. But like, the thing that keeps me going and all that is that and the reason I got into it in the first place, I'm quite curious, you know, person, and like I want to know about new things and about how people are and all the rest of it. And lack of training and technique. I always feel like I've learned something on the last one that I can use in the next one. And I approach everything like in the same way as I would have when I was 16 or 17. You know, with that kind of enthusiasm, but also curiosity and not feeling like I know how to do it or that I'm a master of my craft or anything. Because it is a craft. I'm definitely learning things along the way. So it's that, and that I genuinely like just new circumstances, new people, and travel, and the addictive nature of pretending to be somebody else. I mean, that's a big part of it. And yeah, there was a point in somewhere in the middle of the 90s where I was like, right, I am done. I can't remember what it was that inspired it, but I genuinely just decided that that's it, and I stopped for like 6 months. And because I had decided to stop like that, it just kind of rebooted things and changed things so that when the next thing came along, I kind of shifted into another gear. So it helps to retire every now and then if you can. For anyone who's like has the ability or the privilege of being able to do that. But yeah, so that's also a good question.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I think there was one more question. Was there? Okay. Translation needed or not?
Hello, Mr. Aidan. Excuse me, I have a bad English.
That's great. Thank you.
Yep. So I read my question. You act in film and also perform in theater. Which do you enjoy more? And most question, why?
Yeah, I suppose we kind of covered that a little bit already, but both. I think that if I had to pick one, you know, it's quite close, but it would be probably the acting and screen, only because you're doing a different thing every day, and because if you can try it in 4 different ways or 10 different ways if you're lucky, and you can, like in theatre, you can take loads of risks in the rehearsal room, but once you start doing it, it's kind of the same every night, you know. Now, I'd never be just given the same performance every night and be, you know, going on autopilot, but there's something about coming in and doing, you know, every day is something completely new. And so if I had to pick one, it would be the screen, like film, TV, but the theatre is kind of pretty amazing too. It's just harder and more, it can be quite terrifying, you know, and wreck your head, like psychic, you know, it's like quite draining. You know, exhausting.
So if you want to become an actor, you just got a great motivation speech.
I don't know, but thank you.
Okay, last one here.
Thank you. Hello, Mr. Gillenem.
Hi.
You played one of the most cunning manipulators on television for 7 seasons. How did you switch off from this character at the end of shooting day? Did you have to internally justify his actions to play him convincingly? Or?
No, I don't think internally justify at all. Again, it was like, it's a kind of a fantasy book or world. Thing about that, right, Game of Thrones, because it looked like a huge production, which it was, but like when you were not in front of a camera, you were sitting in like a shipping container, you know, maybe, or, you know, it was very, the people, and a lot of the people who were cast in it, which is great actually, and what's happened in TV in the last 20, 30 years, you know, is that it's just populated with people who look like real people, you know what I mean? It's not, you don't have to be like a model or, you know, whatever to be on TV. Used to be a bit like that, you know? People had to be like really good looking to be on TV and stuff. And then I think it was with HBO, like, you know, just started casting people who look real, you know, people who look like Tony Soprano or whatever. And also, I think what made Game of Thrones really good was people did play things very realistically. There was a lot of really good actors in there, you know, who just played things. They weren't show-offs, you know. There was a bit of showing off, but mostly it was just people doing small, intimate scenes and being real. Not hard to throw off, but it's kind of hard to shake off, if you like, because people do come up and talk about it a lot, and they do, you know, address you as your character.
Yes,
That is quite a funny one actually, because people do, you know, this Lord Baelish stuff. That was when that started happening. It was kind of, you know, like you're in the supermarket buying some vegetables, whatever, and the guy behind the counter is like, you know, bowing and like giving you whatever you desire, my lord, all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's funny. Yeah, so but people do come up still. Well, again, I'll take it as a compliment, you know, and it'll probably, especially nowadays with streaming and stuff never goes away, so new generations of people see stuff, so I'm cursed.
So thank you, my lord, for this interview.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
It's been a pleasure.
And thank you. Thank you.
A děkuji moc i vám, že jste byli tak skvělé a zvídavé publikum, moc si toho vážíme, užívejte si dál festival, tady se od 4 pokračuje s meet and greetem a od 5 nebudu já sedět tady, ale tam, takže kdyby vás zajímalo, jak se dělají rozhovory třeba s lidmi jako je Aiden, mám pár historek, tak si je přijďte třeba poslechnout. Budu moc ráda, ale budu také ráda, když prostě půjdete do kina a budete oslavovat film. Užívejte si to, mějte se hezky, díky.
Thank you, thanks for the questions.